better with you. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show and prove. You should cut off.
Welcome back to Robbing Minds. Now, the conversation moves to the cyberspace, the internet. These days, nothing, and I mean nothing, is held back. You can tune into a podcast and they're discussing things, and you're wondering, why do I need to know this? Or why is this person divulging this amount of information? Why is this person taking a certain stand against another person? Where do you draw that line between free speech and clout chasing, where you're just saying things so that you can get views, you can get clicks, and you're not necessarily paying attention to the effect it has on the other person? Now, to discuss the issue with free speech, cyberbullying, clout chasing within the internet, I have with me a communications personnel, Aviva Imade. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Isabella. Thank you for having me.
So, when you go on the internet, do you sometimes feel that sense of what did I just watch? Or why is this person saying this? Or don't we have some kind of lines now where certain information should not be privy to the whole world?
I mean, sadly, no, right? Fundamentals of liberal democracy, we just, inform that everybody has a right to have an idea, have an opinion without any sort of interference whatsoever, right? And then seeing that social media is a major proponent for that, it sort of gives everyone a platform and gives everybody a voice. And that sort of comes with the fact that, there is almost no filter anymore, because everybody can pick up a keypad and say what they choose to say or what they want to say, which, to your questions, and of course, seeing as that is the reality, I would go online and see certain things and be like, so people don't need to be saying certain things, right? But it comes with the territory. People will still speak, whether I like it or not. And that is really how, free speech works at the end of the day.
So that unfiltered, like you just open your mouth in local parlance, wow, and everything comes out. Where do we draw the line? Aren't there some kind of unwritten rules? Are we looking to have social media regulated before we see some form of withdrawal or control? Because in as much as you can just get behind a keypad, a nameless or a faceless avatar, and just spew a lot of negativity, there are consequences. Cyberbullying is real.
I mean, yeah, to your point, right? I think I would take it from here, right? We all have that family member who says the wrongest things at the right time, or says the right thing at like a deferred period of time, or you have people just have a problem with communication and just like, oh God, just shut. Sorry, I'm on national TV. But we have these people, right? Like I said, it comes with the territory, and now that we have a platform that is sort of amplified for the entire world to see, right? But in our sort of like micro spaces, we definitely have those people who just maybe don't know what to say or don't know how to talk and just say what, anyhow, like we all have that reaction, right? But then again, to your comment about like I don't believe in censorship. I think the best way to combat hate speech or combat all these things is with more speech, right? I think it's scripture that sort of says that when the righteous rule, the people sort of rejoice, right? But if you who knows the right thing then decides to keep your mouth shut in the case where you should be speaking up, then, the consequence is somebody else feels unheard or somebody else feels not heard. I know platforms like Twitter, Instagram are combating false information. So when people say things, for instance, that are not real, right, you then are able to do a bit further investigation. Then they point it out on the platform. I think most recently there was the Kate Middleton sort of situation where people realized that the picture was fake. If you go on, I think the Instagram page of that now, you can see that the picture is blurred, and they say, oh, it has been investigated that this picture is not real. So platforms are trying to curb as much as they can when it comes to false information. But as regards to free speech, again, like I said, the best way to combat it is really with more speech. It's like when your relative says something that you don't agree with, or you know that it's wrong and it's not the right thing to say at the time, everybody passes on the person and you're like, my friend, will you like, keep quiet? It's sort of the same thing that you have to do. Everybody, the thing about social media, one of the good things that I've seen, working in this way, I mean, we work in this space that we've seen is it has given people a chance to change their narratives, right? It has given people a chance who otherwise would not have necessarily had a successful future, or as successful a future as they would have had, but social media has given them the power to really take hold of their lives and take hold of, their own narratives and really change, their lives and themselves for the better, right? Do we then want to combat that with allowing people like that not to thrive because there are some, bad eggs in that space who then decide that, certain
So
things
so
should
these
be waived?
bad eggs, I hear you. Do you feel that the owners of these social media platforms, your Meta, your X, are doing enough to prevent cyberbullying? So I hear you on fake news, and I've seen that. But when it comes to cyberbullying, where does expressing an opinion go, where does it go beyond just expressing an opinion and then it has a negative effect? Should there be more mechanisms in place for people to report such kind of speech that borders on hate speech or cyberbullying? And do you believe that these owners are doing enough?
To your first question, as regards to when does it cross the line, right? I think that's very easily defined, right? When it sort of begins to have some psychological effect on the person that you're addressing or the situation that you're addressing, right? Or then there's like a specific harm or threat that is going to cause, right? Then it's no longer free speech because it's then like causing harm to maybe national security or something. And that would have, consequences because it's no more you talking, it's you literally putting people at risk, right? So from a more physical and justifiable lens, there are consequences for speech. There are consequences for speech like that, right? But on a more like psychological or traumatic level where people are hounded, I've heard like horror stories of people who took their lives because they are dragged.
Well, let me give you a recent example. Alex Iwobi. We all know like the amount of trolling on his performance at the just concluded AFCON to the point that he deactivated his account. Now, there were some people that said, well, you played a bad game, so you should be able to take it. And there were other people that are saying, look, it's his mental health that we're talking about. He's not the only one. Why single him out? So where do you draw the line when it's not necessarily treasonable speech or that's putting the country at risk, but this is someone's mental health?
I mean, like I said, the tenets of free speech is such that everybody has a right to their ideas, right? So what does Meta want to do about a case like that is justifiably just banter? For instance, it's kind of like everybody banters. But if you notice what then happened almost, I think the next day or maybe a few hours afterwards, we then started combating that with more speech. So you had his teammates, you had his, top people in the industry. I think the sports director or something sat with him at some point, sort of calmed the whole situation down, and then you sort of saw that he started becoming like way better sort of after that. And that is if we then begin to go away from that, then so we want to start censoring people, that has proven to do more harm than it will good, because it means that there are certain things I want to say because they've deemed it fit that is not right the way they want it to be said, and that is not a situation that we want to happen. But as regards to if the platforms are doing something about it, they are. Like, you can block somebody on Twitter that is sort of like tampering with like your mental health and protect your space in that way. So whatever tweets, whatever thing the person says, whatever post the person does, it's
and you can also mute if you don't want to totally
block. You can report the account, you can report that particular X tweet, so to speak, right? That like, oh, I don't agree with this. And if they screen it and feel like it's not working, they take it down. And the response times are getting better and faster.
I want us to move to the comment section, because there are some people that just go and park at the comment section and they put all sorts of false news, negativity, and it's all because of virality. They want to trend, they want to stir up something. And where do you now draw the line between, okay, this person has a right to comment, but then you're just doing that to just cause harm because there's no other reason?
I mean, the responsibility then lands on the person that has the platform where that is happening, right? Say I was a famous celebrity that posted something and then people are coming for that hate speech. I could decide to turn the comments off. I think Oprah's comments right now turned off just so like things like that don't happen. Instagram activated that feature so you don't have to have, but it's a personal responsibility. If you feel like there's going to be a lot of hate, you can easily just turn that off. On platforms like X, for instance, that try people sadly, the organ at the top has monetized virality, so to speak. So you have a lot of people going left on comments, so they thrive on they know what is right, but they will go left because everybody's going to jump on it. Everybody's going to, do you get what I mean? To monetize, that kind of thing. But it also, there's a lot of personal responsibility in this equation as such for a reason of the greater good. There's personal responsibility, one, to protect your space, to understand, social media is social media. It can affect, so there is a need to put up a boundary. This is what there are people who do social media detox. I personally do it from time to time. I don't need to see what everybody is doing. There are times that, like, I have low times. I don't need your comments. It doesn't necessarily even have to be hate comments. It might just be somebody is doing well, and then I feel like, oh my God, my life is over, that kind of thing. But I can easily just stay away from that situation so that it doesn't sort of affect my mental health and just protect my space. It's sort of the same way you're in sort of like a toxic situation, a toxic relationship. For you to actually feel better, for you to actually heal, you need to step away from that situation.
So that puts a lot of the responsibility on the individual. But then you have instances where people who are very popular use their platform to give an opinion about something. And in the process of giving that opinion, you can end up influencing people to believe something that isn't real. And that can lead to cyberbullying. Now, in terms of cyberbullying in Nigeria, do you think the government is doing enough to tackle it? Do you think, let's leave the conversation of censoring or not censoring, but when cyberbullying does occur, is the government responsive enough? Are people protected? And are people also now being warned? Are there enough scapegoats so that other people don't abuse freedom of speech?
So I think my question would be, is there such a thing as abuse of freedom of speech? I mean, I can understand where that's, how that would seem that way. But if we sort of take it back a bit to when sort of like the last administration banned X, for instance, and we're out of it for, you know how that whole went down. Is that the result that we want, right? Or do we want a situation where, again, all these platforms are sort of combating news, like watch the example that you pointed out, right? People are seeing a lot of things, and they can verify that these things that they are saying are not true. Now platforms would put it down there that this news has not been verified. Are they doing much? Yes, they are doing much, but then it's a very dicey situation to play in. Imagine saying, yes, everybody has the right to their ideas, but there is definitely a situation where people will then begin to spread false ideas. There's a situation where, people will begin to say things that are not true. How can we help people combat it? Then we have the instances of personal responsibility where they've put the power in your hands to restrict, to block, to do anything that you want to do to protect your own space, protect your own timeline, protect everything that you want to protect. There is also them that are now filtering information through I think they are hiring a lot, doing a lot of, false information, sort of like vetting and things like that, so that things like that don't gain a lot of massive and wildfire, right? And then there's also the conversation of then sort of like managing all of these situations where more people are coming out and saying, oh, this is not how it should be, this is not what should be said, this is not true, this is how things should go. And every one of, as much as the celebrities or whoever has a platform, we all have individual platforms. And the way these algorithms work is, once people rally around the opinions, they rally around the opinions, and then when there's sort of like an avalanche of opinions that are in the rights, they can't combat the things that are, sort of not true. But we always find, much like in the world, we always find people who say a lot of rubbish and get away with it. Sadly, because of freedom of speech, that is but when we can then justify that, oh, this particular thing, this that was said, led to a specific kind of harm, then we can go after whoever has perpetrated such, an unlawful situation.
So, there's this, the right to freedom of expression, right? And there's sometimes people express a particular view, and people who are in a position of power deem it libelous, and they say, okay, you know what, I'm going to come after you. And sometimes people have found themselves in jail as a result of something they tweeted or something they posted on their social media. So the question is the government doing enough to protect that person's rights who just expressed something, but because the person had power, was able to pounce on them, literally?
I think in the case of, I'm not a lawyer, so I would speak based on what I know, right, or what my experiences have been, right? In cases like this would be cases of dispute, right, where whoever goes to report you to the police, right, says, oh, this thing that this person has done has as it's kind of like libel or slander, or
Yes.
things like that, they would, is more a law situation or like a dispute situation, and it is government coming down. I believe the government will only come into the situation when it poses a threat to national security or national harm, where you're maybe giving out information that puts our security at risk. And I'm like, who is this person? Come. So like in my mind, the way I like to look at it, let's give each person their business, right? Government is not going to come if somebody is insulting me, or it's between the both of you. You people should deal with it. If you want to take it to the law court, take it to the law court to justify why this maybe is a libel or slander case, or if this speech has consequently led to, some harm to you, right? And then the law court to take it, from there. But are there laws that, guides all those kind of constitutions that guide this kind of thing? Of course, there are constitutions that guide freedom of speech in Nigeria that clearly states exactly what it is, and guys like liberal democracy and all of those things. There are things, I mean, we've heard of like the recent things, but everything has to go through like due process to then justify if, the case stands or the case doesn't stand.
I think you've made a very important point on the fact that the responsibility is on the individual to know how far the person can go, because there are consequences as stated in our constitution, in our laws. So just because it's on the online space, if it doesn't catch up with you, it will eventually catch up with you.
I mean, if I could also add, so there are even situations where you tweet certain things and then you're trying to apply for a visa for people that are trying to Japan, and then they call it out. It lives on the internet forever. So if people are thinking of spewing hate speech, you kind of want to be careful, because eventually it might not, like you said, it might not hold to you now, but eventually they will pull it out, right, in your later days, and say it wasn't not you that said this particular thing, because the internet will never forget. So people also want to have personal responsibility to ensure that they are not doing something that they were saying things that they would regret.
I think that's a great place to bring this conversation to a close. The internet never forgets. So we have to be careful and take that personal responsibility, so we're not found wanting today or in the future. Thank you very much, Aviva Imade, for being our guest.
Isabella. Thank you.
Wanna get with you. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show